Hey everybody, it's Marla Schultz, Flip the Switch. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so thrilled to have this fabulous female sitting to my right or to my left. It's Mary Kennedy. She is on the season 7 of Shameless playing new Fiona, and she's a phenomenal stand-up comic, Boston bred, now living in Los Angeles. Mary.
Hey Marla. Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on.
I know.
So how's it in Los Angeles?
Can you believe that it was 45 degrees this morning here? It was freezing.
Okay.
I know.
Do you know how warm it was here today?
What, like 80?
It was like, yeah, close to 80. And that's why I'm in, a tank top. So, I want to entice the younger viewers, like let them think that I'm like naked.
Yeah, no, I'm in a like pashmina. No, I mean, it's ridiculous how cold it is in LA. My heat's on for the first time. Mm-hmm.
That is great. Well, I was just also up in your neck of the woods, like the Berkshires, even though I know you're Boston. I had a couple of shows up there and it was, 70 degrees and I brought the parka and the boots and all ready to go. But anyway, for my legions of viewers, this woman, not only is she a great friend, and by the way, everybody, the reason why I'm doing this show is because one, I can't travel to come see you and do fun things.
Right.
So it's better than just like a friend Zoom catch up, but it kind of is. And I'm just putting my stuff out there. But Mare,
yes.
Why don't you just tell the 10 people that are watching how we met? Like we met back in New York, right, and what the comedy scene was like back then.
So well, it all started for me when I dated a guy who was a musician. And we were out on a date and he brought a book to the date. He did. I'm not kidding. You know how like guys, if you're on a date, they'll go through their cell phone, not this guy. He brought like a full book. I'm talking like 500 pages, War and Peace. And then at the end of the date, he's like, you're really funny. You should do stand up. And that was the key. And then like my first set was all about him bringing the book to our first date. I started at Stand Up New York. And then I started producing. And then my first like sort of paid gig was I was the host for the 12 to 2 a.m. on Thursdays down at New York Comedy Club.
Oh, and was that the old club on 2nd Avenue?
Yep.
Where
the old club on 2nd Avenue. Yep.
Like the urine, and you would step in the urine. You're like, God, I just hope my foot doesn't fall through the. I still remember that smell. That smell was so profound, and it seared. It just seared like my olfactory senses. Like I remember that. But then again, I'm weird. I remember I remember smells. So do you remember the first joke?
My first joke I talked about, I think, being like Kennedy. I said I'm poor white trash Kennedy. I think that was the first joke.
And you guys you are related to them.
Yeah, third cousins, twice removed. Yeah.
Have you been to Hyannis?
No, my father did. My father went to Hyannisport over the summer when he was 9, and he ended up getting stung by like a black widow, and so he was in bed for like 2 weeks, and JFK's nurse took care of him.
Wow.
So he was stuck on the compound. Yeah, we were, I ended up getting an award in college from Ted Kennedy's office. So, I mean, we were cousins, but we weren't, having Sunday dinner together or Thanksgiving. And but you can see, look at the Ted Kennedy chin, Marla. Look, here it is. This is menopause.
I got it too. I was just saying it's starting to look like a vagina, because the folds, and it's like the last thing I want is this. And I keep saying, I just want to have it. You know what I'm thinking? I don't know if you've seen this new invention. I think it's fabulous, but you know how we have to wear the masks?
Yeah.
Now, doesn't it hurt your ears?
A little bit, yeah.
And I feel like I'm going to get cauliflower ears because the wrestlers, when they had, they came out with this invention. It's called a mask extender. So you put it on the end and you wear it on the back of your head, and it takes the pressure off the ears. But maybe there could be something. Well, look at my background. Maybe there could be something that would help, tack this shit back.
Well, you know what Kathy Ladman says? She says she's going to use chip clips. Did you fix it?
She's going to use what?
Chip clips. Like,
oh, like this stuff.
Yeah, like and clip it back with chick. I love Kathy. Kathy's a comic. I'm giving her credit for her joke. Yeah, like where she'd grab chip clips and tie them back.
No, it looks like, you know what this looks like? Remember, I don't know if you've, this used, when I was smoking a lot of pot, I would lay upside down and do the chin people.
Oh yeah.
This is like a reverse thing. So speaking of Kathy Ladman, you were also on Women of a Certain Age.
Yeah, the live show. I was on the live
that?
show in LA. Yeah, it was great. It was amazing. Yeah, she did it when we pre-COVID. Carole Montgomery did a bunch of live shows, and I was on a show with Kathy Ladman at the Improv. It was great. I mean, that show, one of the highest comedy live taped comedies, on Showtime. I mean, amazing women, and it was their second one. I mean, how many people like get back-to-back comedy specials? Carole Montgomery does. So it was pretty amazing. And to work with Kathy Ladman, who I idolized, growing up as we were coming up, like we were in the you and I were kind of in the same group of girls coming up, and, they paved the way for us. So it's been a journey. I mean, it's hard. I mean, are you starting to do live shows in New York? I mean, you're going on the road now, so you're going and doing live shows.
I was on the road. I mean, from, 79 flights from, taking care of my mom, going in and out of Raleigh, breaking into that comedy scene, which was really awesome. But I'm up in the Berkshires, and I worked at this resort, and, behind a plexiglass, I didn't have my glasses on, and I smacked into it, and it was like,
oh my God.
And I said I felt like a sex worker in Amsterdam, because you're just like, hey, come on over, come on, laugh. So that, and then you're performing in front of people with masks on, you feel like you're in The Handmaid's Tale. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know. I mean,
it's hard. It's hard. I had to do a show on election night. And my husband, it was, listen, we voted for Biden, and the stress, I mean, he had his laptop, we had 2 TVs, he had the iPad, it was like command central, and he was, ready to throw himself out of the first story window. And then I had to go do a show, and everybody's sitting there. Anyway, but how about you? You're doing shows.
Well, I've been doing, I did a couple shows in the park. Don't be jealous. And then I'm trying to think, I did one for Jimmy Shin, who produces at the Improv. And he did a live show, which was really cool, with Eric Griffin, as the headliner. And then I'm going to be, Flappers now is doing live shows at the Pickwick Bowl in Burbank. And so I'll be doing a live show there on November 29th. But it's socially distanced, and everybody's in their cars. I have a drive-in show this coming Saturday in Van Nuys as well.
So now, do they honk when you?
I hope so. I have it. This is my first drive-in show is Carpool Comedy on Saturday in Van Nuys, and then the following weekend I'm at the Pickwick Bowl. I hope so. I don't even know. And then they have a stream for your friends and family to see it too, which is awesome. But like, wouldn't that be awful? My family from Boston is watching, and there's one lonely horn going, or a Prius that doesn't even really, it's like, it coughs. A Prius coughs like, I mean.
It's more like a heat, a little heat, a little thing like that. So Mare, first of all, congratulations on, getting on Shameless. How awesome was that?
It's awesome. I mean, it's, I tell a lot of actors, that was like my second big break. I mean, my first one was when I was on ER. After those things happen, you end up kind of in the hallway. And so during COVID, I thank God for my agents and my managers. I have been auditioning regularly since COVID happened. Everything's self-tape. But I'm going in for bigger roles than, before. More people will call me in because they know I was on Shameless, but we're all still trying for the gig. What's different now is it's almost a little bit more competitive, because not only am I competing with the LA market, I'm competing with all of the United States and Canada. I mean, we're all, that's every actor now can self-tape. And so that's been interesting. And I also teach actors, young and old, through my company, Youth Acting Biz for Kids and the Biz Studio for Adults. And I keep telling them, you're not going to get the same feedback that you did when you were physically walking into an office.
Sure.
So send your tape and hope for the best. And you know what? It's been a great lesson for me to let it go. Like, I just let it go. I go, all right, it's in the universe. We'll see what happens.
You know, speaking of letting it go, it's like, you know, I was raised in a family that really hangs on to the resentment, like as they're, you know, 1 foot into the grave, and it's like, I can't believe you. But letting stuff go, especially in acting, is like, how did you master that?
Well, I haven't mastered it. I mean, and I was going to ask you, are you Irish? Because the Irish do the same thing. We hold on for dear, like you see the claw marks.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've mastered it. I think what I've realized is that there's really no way to figure it out, especially now. It's like the Wild West. I mean, you know, but what's been good is that, you know, people that have stuck in and said, you know what, I'm going to do this. This is probably going to be the wave of the future. I don't think actors are going to go into first call anymore. I think everybody's going to be taping first. And then if they like you, they'll be calling you back. But no, you have to. And I'm also, you know, I have kids. I'm, you know, close to a big age. At this point, you know, I can't dwell on it.
Close? Like you haven't jumped over the hill yet?
Not yet, but it's close. But what I'm saying is that I think at a certain point, you know, you just have to go, okay, I did the best I could. Now, what am I cooking for dinner? You know? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think what's hard for me, this is what I've been noticing, and maybe because I'm on Facebook way too much, it's hard to see people that haven't been working as long as we have getting these amazing opportunities. And then I get a little upset, like, well, I'm here. And I have to go, God bless, good for them.
Well, Mary, listen, when I see your feed, I mean, it seems like you're like, I'm auditioning and I booked and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm like, oh my God, I sent in an audition for Amy Schumer's show. And it was really good. And my manager was like, this was funny. And I mean, she's great. It's not like she doesn't, fantastic, and blow sunshine up your ass. But I was like really psyched about it. And you've helped me tremendously. So, you know, coaching for stuff. But it's really hard to let it go, especially, you know, for me, I had all these amazing opportunities and I was just kind of like in an addiction, and I totally sabotaged, like when I was out in LA. And now I feel I'm really proud of the work I'm doing. And I'm like, what do you mean I didn't get a call back? Everyone's like, stick in because you wouldn't be getting these opportunities. You know what I mean? It's hard to keep going. And how long were you in it before you got, you know, your big break?
Well, it's interesting. It becomes cyclical as well, or cyclical, I guess you'd say.
Tomato,
you know, I booked,
tomato.
Yeah, I whatever, tomato. I booked ER right after my grandmother died.
Wow.
That was a horrible, like my grandmother died, then my father died. Like I ended up booking ER right after my grandmother died. And the nurse Hale, who's always was the nurse on that the whole time, she pulled me aside and she said, you know, your grandmother had a part in this, I'm sure. And, you know, that was really awesome. And then I ended up being a recurring. So that was amazing. So, and then I booked Shameless 6 months after my mother died. So life was in session. I'm not saying that people have to die in your life for you to get breaks. I'm not saying that. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think my head was so in the results because I was grieving. I was,
Sure.
I worked a lot, you know, when I was pregnant, you know, because I wasn't like, oh my God. Now that this is really one of my main focuses and I have to be accountable to my students, you know, I do wonder, I go, well, why, you know, but then if I'm in the why, I'm not in the next thing that I need to do.
Sure.
So
when did you move out to LA?
I moved out to LA 20 years ago. So I booked ER. I was probably like 30, maybe. So 18 years ago.
So now did you book ER and that's what got you to move out to LA, or?
No, I did a comedy convention out in Big Bear, and there was a bunch of producers at the convention watching us. And one of the producers from ABC said, "Do you want to be on television?" And I said, of course. And he goes, well, I really think that you probably should move out to LA. You have a really good commercial look. You know, you're funny, you know, come out to LA. And a friend of mine at the time was an agent that I went to college with. I went to Emerson, and he said to me, he goes, I'm not taking you as a client until I know you're ready to be out here. I'm not going to take you so you come out here, because you have to know that you like Los Angeles. So I made the big move, and, you know, Comedy Store called me back. So I had that too. And I said, you know what, I'm going to come out and see what happened. And within 3 months of moving out here, I had an agent and I booked my first national.
Gosh.
So, and the trip, to plan LA was so easy. So same thing with New York. When I got out to New York, I had a job, you know, I was stage managing, and I ended up getting a job. Like, there's certain things in your life that it's just easy, but getting here and then getting that first thing was great. Then it was dark for a while. You know, I booked 2 commercials back to back, and then I wasn't getting a lot. And then we had to change my headshots. So it's a business just like anything else. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, these kind of things you're doing, like podcasts and vodcasts, people are watching those more than ever now.
Well, I mean, you have to be, and it's also a good way to stay connected, because you don't want to be up if you're living with somebody, you're married, you got kids. I mean, that's a big energy suck. It really is. And then you need to, I miss seeing my friends. I miss the camaraderie, you know, going to the clubs and running into people, catching up. I mean, even hugging somebody.
Me too.
You know, and it's just such a great way to, it's like making a date to hang out, and why not broadcast it? Because everybody else is putting their shit out there. You know what I mean?
Well,
why not? How long between getting ER, and because you said that was your first major break, and then getting Shameless?
my last episode of ER was in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And I booked Shameless in 2016.
Wow.
So 10 years. But I kept going back to that casting office. I just went to that casting office 3 weeks ago for a series regular, co-star recurring. It was co-star recurring, not series regular, co-star recurring. And I didn't get it. But I love them over there. They get me. They support you. Once you get a casting director that likes you and you've booked for them, yep, they watch out for you. But my agent keeps telling me, she says, you're going to go in for these roles, and they may look at it and go, yeah, she did really well, but we have something else in mind, or we're not going to hire for this. Because the beauty of those shows, ER, Shameless, if you're on that show once, you can't be on it again.
Sure.
So, you know, you know, you have to be patient. But, you know, that's great. The fact that there's a casting, you know, John Levy, who casts Shameless and ER, he's incredible casting director, and he watches actors as they progress, and he just keeps calling you in.
That's awesome.
People don't understand. It's, you know, the casting director calls you in, but then you have a room of producers and directors sometimes the network that make the final decision.
Yeah. So. I had, when you talk, just to go back, I got my first comedy break. My grandmother had just died, and it was the Toyota Comedy Festival. And it was like back in the 90s. And I had Sarge on, and Sarge, Sam Brown, and we were the first, we got there like 6 o'clock in the morning. Long story short, great audition. I got the call back. It was my grandma's funeral. My family threw me on the Long Island Railroad. And I walked in, and he goes, kid, you got 5 minutes? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you're in. And it was a big deal. So many first refusals. And but I also have had some major mess ups, because I said I was like in my addiction. So I had a friend who was producing Hannah Montana, and this was, I shouldn't even bring up bad stuff, but I went in, I didn't prepare. I like binged out on sugar. So I was all hung out over. And you ever have that where you get tongue tied and you keep on slipping on the banana, and it was like, and they were like, take your time. And I couldn't get the words out. And I walked out, and I was bawling my eyes out. And there's Jane Lynch. And she was like, did you just come out from more? Slipping on the banana. And she hugged me, and she was so sweet.
Aww. Yeah, she's
and she goes, you know what? There'll be something else. And then I booked, I was supposed to be a recurring on Dirt with Courtney Cox.
It's a great show.
We did one episode, and then the writer's strike hit, and then.
Yep. I know. I auditioned for House the week before the writers strike, and the cast director goes, "You're great. I could totally use you, but we're probably going on strike." And I was like,
and it's so weird, but as an actor and a performer, it's so hard not to take it personally.
Right.
And I've cried to you because I seem to get called in for security guards, police. And I was like, okay, so I'm not a leading lady and I'm not the best friend. I guess Hollywood sees me as a security guard. And my last role I booked on Power. And, it was like the season finale, and it was really cool. And they really showcased the back of my head. And it just highlighted how my laser hair removal, like the Kardashians, wasn't really working. So why they liked my bun, and hey, it's a paycheck,
Well, yeah. And you realize that those gigs, you do, like, for instance, I've been doing recurring sketch on Conan, right? I love that gig, Conan. If you hear me, he can't do it right now, right? I think he's doing his show, but we're not having sketch performers. And that, I did background for that because that's how they start you. But we did background, and then I got upgraded to a principal. It was amazing. And now with COVID, we're not there. But it's weird how those gigs start. You come in, and then it's almost like a job. Then you get promoted, and
sure.
And that, I mean, talk about a dream. I remember I did a sketch, and Conan was doing his opening monologue, and I'm in backstage walking to my spot for the sketch, because it was in the audience, and just to hear the audience and hear him do his monologue, I mean, it was incredible. But did I have a ton of lines? No, but it was just incredible to be in that atmosphere.
Absolutely.
So it will come back. I mean,
I think so. Well, now with the vaccine, which is a good thing.
Well, and also, you also, at the end of the day, there's so many, and I said this to my daughter. My daughter's an artist, my 14-year-old. She has some interest in this business, but she'll just do it if I book something, But she said something about, she was writing an essay for English, and she goes, "I'm not a good writer." And I said to her, I go, there's enough people in this world that are going to bring you down. You can't bring yourself down.
That's awesome.
And that's what I say to you. Listen, you were like, you had all these comedy stuff. When I was coming up, I would look up to you and go, oh my God, if I could just do what Marla was doing. Yeah,
well, Mary, now the situation is reversed. Because if I could do what Mary's doing, I would. I've done mental health. I'm an advocate, and I go to schools, and I talk on behalf of the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and just talking about the importance of humor and how humor has saved my life. And what was it about stand-up that did you always know you were funny? Is it a guiding force in your life? Like, wow, what role does humor and laughter play in your life is really what I'm asking.
Well, listen, I came from, a poor family in Massachusetts, a daughter of divorced parents, which, listen, I'm glad my parents got divorced. Like, that's where, but, my mom was a single mom. I mean, we would have, search the couch for change Sunday so we could go food shopping. I mean, we didn't have heat and hot water one year. I mean, we showered at the Y. I mean, this is what we have. And I can say that now, like, I can say that now, but as a kid, there was a lot of shame around that, I think. But I also was brought up by a single mother who had a band. I mean, my mother started a band, right? So my mother always encouraged us to be totally true to who we were. And I think when I was an altar server for the Catholic Church, I used to crack jokes on the altar during communion. Like, I would just, to my friend Anne Marie, I would crack jokes. I was like, oh, the father's hair is a little wild today. Like, I just, and so, that is the kind of stuff that I did, but it was always encouraged to be funny in our Irish family. Cause there's a lot, when you have a lot of tragedy, if you don't laugh about it, like, I mean, and sometimes I took it too far. Like, I remember I was, at my grandmother's funeral, and she was a tough Irish lady, super religious. And I'm walking down the aisle with my mother. We're sort of arm in arm after the service. And everybody's so upset, and everyone's crying and all this stuff. And I said under my breath, I go, oh, come on. She was a pain in the ass. And everybody lost it because we needed that break. Like, it was like, so you know, my dad was super funny. My brother is probably the funniest human I know. Like, he's hilarious, and we couldn't be more diametrically opposed, but he's hilarious. And so I think in that culture, much like your culture,
Absolutely.
it was very encouraged, because if I didn't laugh, I was going to cry. And I always go to the joke first, always.
And I think that's really good. That's great advice, because I've been asked, you know, what is it like? And I say the only way through pain is, you know, the only way out is through, and use a punchline, because that just flips the switch. That's how this name.
Oh, I love that. No, it
That's
does.
how this name came about. But I remember, you know, I grew up on an Irish Catholic block, and it was Doreen, Maureen, Colleen, Maureen, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, and we were the only Jewish family, and we were having a bris, and all these cars lined up. And a bris, for those who don't know, the Jews celebrate snipping off, you know, a week-old baby's foreskin. So I had already, I was made aware of the differences, because I couldn't go to St. Pat's with all my friends, and that's like a whole nother story. So I found on the side of my house, I had this little rock garden, and it seemed like this like fleshy thing. And I go, this must be, and I had a list, this must be the foreskin of my baby brother's penis. And I went around the neighborhood and explaining why they weren't invited, and the calls that my mother got. She was like, what are you telling the neighbor? Ding dong, hi, this is my baby brother's like foreskin from his penis. And they were, and I got home, and my mother was like, this isn't foreskin. The rabbi wouldn't throw the foreskin out of the window. This is roast beef fat, you goddamn Uncle Al. That's what he threw out the window. It's not foreskin. I mean, and it would turn into this whole thing. And, you know, I love telling that story.
Yeah. No, and it's based kind of on fact. I mean, that's the thing. And my mom also was a church organist for the Catholic Church. So, you know, Christmas, I was at 4 masses back to back. I don't know how, you know, Jesus, I was like, by the end, I was like, yay, it's Jesus's birthday. Woohoo. Like, I was like, you know, big deal, you know? Yeah. Like, Jesus pushed the rock away. We're all set. Let's move along. You know, I mean, that's so, you know, I'm very proud of my mother for pushing us in that direction. My father was an insurance broker. He didn't like when I booked ER, he was like, is that good? I was like, yeah.
Oh,
No, he didn't get it, but that's okay. And he didn't get, you know, my mother's stuff either. He would sit there and just be like, why aren't you guys financial brokers? Like, he could not understand why I didn't go to college for business. And I go, I can barely do math. What are you talking about?
the same way. Like, they thought I was R, you know, because they were like, well, her English is great, but what's up with the,
I mean, it just, but you have to, and that's where you have to be committed. My father was really funny too.
Yeah.
He, you know, my uncles are funny. Like, everybody in my family, my cousin Peter is hilarious. He sometimes, you know, I have a joke with realtors comedy shows with realtors next weekend, and he's writing like a couple of realtor jokes for me. I'm like, okay, you know.
I got one for you.
Yes. Oh yes. Tell me.
I worked in the news business, and then I got a job at the Business News Channel, and it was so stressful because I was terrible with numbers, and I'm writing about like all this stuff. And one day I got called into the anchor's office, and she goes, Marla, we love you. You're so funny, but Fannie Mae is not a person. Use it.
That's funny. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, use it. It's absolutely. But, you know, I just want to get back to something where you said about, you know, humor. You always go towards the laugh as opposed to the tears. I just, and you know what? So I think so many people are intimidated by stand-up and the ability to get up and do stand-up. You know, I do these workshops, and I had a marketing person, and she goes, no, I'm not funny. And it is so powerful how people will tell you who you are and what you know, how you are in the world. And I just wanted to let you know, I thought it was great what you told your daughter about don't put yourself down, because it's like the human experience. It's such a, God forbid you feel good and you want to pursue your dreams, you know, in fact, your dad didn't get it.
He didn't get it, but he also, I think, you know, but here's the other thing that like, and this is how the whole Kennedy thing came together. You know, for my graduation lunch, he rented out one of the Senate dining rooms Ted Kennedy connection, got on one of the Senate dining rooms. So I had my graduation lunch in one of the Senate dining rooms in Massachusetts.
Wow.
So, like in his own way, he did it. And listen, I got his business sense. I mean, I also produce, I'm executive producer of Morgan Hall Media as well. I produce because of my father's background. My father knew business. He could sell you a free phone book for $400. I mean, that was my father. So you learn from both. I think it was a world he didn't understand, and that's the thing. It's a crazy, the business that we do, and the fact that we go on stage and we're fine if people laugh at us. if you pull it out, you're like, wait a second, but there's nothing, one of my friends, Amanda Cohen, who hosted one of the shows at Flubbers, she said to comics, doing stand-up is like heroin. I mean, like when you have a good set, I mean, not that I know what heroin is like, but I'm just saying when you have a good set and everybody's on and you can say anything and they're with you, there is nothing like that ever.
Oh, I think, I'm a total adrenaline junkie, because what works, and especially if you're performing in front of a giant crowd and then they're all laughing. I mean, there's like nothing like it. But when you do a joke and you get, I will hang on to that. And then going back to the whole resentment, I was like, you're taught not to blame the audience, but you're like, no, wait a minute, fuck you, because that's a good job. And
sometimes they're not good. I mean, sometimes the audience is not good.
Isn't that weird? You walk in and you can just, the energy is so palatable. Like you can feel it. And it's like, I don't know, it's like walking into a giant fart, it just stinks. And it's like this, it's hanging over and you just can't pierce that sack of smell,
But you're doing self-help stuff, right? Like, are you doing like things where you're doing comedy in front of people for self-help when you're doing
yes, I'm actually, talking to people that suffer from that are hospitalized, nurses, students, people I just went out of focus. I was like, soft glaze. We're in the dream sequence. Here we go. Yeah, just talking about my experience. I've suffered from depression. I've had 3 bad bouts, and people would never think that, because this is who I am, and I could always put on a happy face. And having sets, I went through a bad time in New York, and the fact that I passed at the comic strip, because back then it was like,
that was a huge. I remember when you passed.
Yeah, it was, but it took 7 times, and Lucian. I auditioned for the Montreal Comedy Festival and I destroyed, and he goes, well, I guess I've used every excuse in the book. I guess you could call in your avails. And that day I felt like I arrived, it was awesome. Talk about just humor, when I shared something really painful and very intimate and people laughed, it not only connected me, it connected them to me. It lessened, it took away the power of the pain. Is what humor does.
Yeah. Well, and listen, 2 days after my father died, I was on stage, right?
Yeah.
It took my friend Paul, who I work a lot with, who I also teach with, he got me up and running after my mother died. It was, I was lured by money. It was a New Year's Eve gig and I got to wear sparkles, and he's like, you're doing it. And I was able to get up and get out, because I also know my mother, and I knew that she was not going to want me to not do stand up.
Sure.
But it's still hard to do. I have a whole bit about, getting flowers for her funeral, and my mother's allergic to every flower. I mean, but those are still hard. And so it's about, it saved me. I think comedy in a lot of ways, I had a really dark time in New York at one point. It saved me. Comedy saved me. And the community, the men and women that we came up with, it was so supportive. I think comics who are coming up now in this Zoom age are not going to feel that support. They may after this is all over,
right.
But I'm still friends with people from New York. I'm so glad. And, Tim Davis created such a great space at Stand Up New York for a lot of us.
He was, And Carrie Hoffman, that fuck. I mean, he wanted to be my friend on Facebook. And you know what he said to me? He goes, Marla, if I had a daughter, it would be you. And I said, well, obviously nepotism isn't a vocabulary in your language.
There are people that you're going to totally that love you. And then there are people that just don't get you. You know, I had one agent. It was so interesting. One agent, you know, I was booking commercially. You know, I had the ER credit. I also did a pilot for VH1. I mean, I had stuff that this guy could push. And this one agent said to me, I don't know how to market you. I don't know what to do with you. I've never had anyone say to me, I don't know what to do with you, Mary. Like, if I'm not like, you know, I'm not like a dust cloud. I mean, if you met me, I'm like vibrant and I'm like fun and whatever. And then once you know it, it was
you
a blessing.
Improv and roll with it.
What do you mean? What are you saying?
No, just like, because we're comics, you know, it's like, can you just like,
oh yeah,
you're in a kitchen and now you're using a blender that exploded. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Damn it.
But yeah, no, and it's so funny. My favorite moment was when I went up to him and I said, you know, I booked Shameless, my new agents, and I booked Shameless. And he was like, what? And I was like, but wait, he didn't get me. And you really don't want to have somebody that doesn't get you, because you want a team. Like, I'm so grateful now that my team that I have, I mean, it sounds so Hollywood, my team, but my team that I have now, they totally get me. And the roles that they send me make total sense. And sometimes it's a reach. Some stuff is a reach. You know, I got to do voiceover and play a teenage boy 2 weeks ago as an audition. I mean, there's certain things like they'll push me when they need to. If you ever have a team that's like, I don't get you, like, then you got to be like, hi, you know.
Do you remember the show, Girls Behaving Badly?
Loved it. You were on it.
Yeah, I was recurring on that. And when I moved out to LA, I was with an agency in New York that had, you know, the LA office. So I go in and I meet with everybody, and so I'm in, you know, like you're in the conference room and you're sitting at the table and they're like just looking at you, and I was like, oh, I booked a recurring on Girls Behaving Badly, and they're like, you know, I just don't think you're LA. And I was like, hello, I'm a recurring co-host on Girls Behaving Badly. And they were like, yeah, I don't know what we can do with, you know, thank God I got somebody else. And, you know, I booked some other stuff, but.
Well, in LA, like I had to sort of cut the stuff through LA. But it's interesting, you know, when I was in New York and I was calling to do spots in LA, like I was like, oh, of course. When I got to LA, I had to start over. Yeah. And nobody cared. And the thing was, this was the hardest part, I think, when I first got here, to see so many beautiful women who didn't have, I mean, sorry, ladies, not trying to push women. Let's push women up, but who had not one funny bone in their body, but they were featuring on the major stages of the comedy clubs.
Stripper clothes.
I know. I would lose my mind. I would go, what is happening? You know, and it was like, because they were hot and, you know, but it was just amazing. I was like, how long have you been doing comedy? And my favorite one was, I was at like, it's now the Pink Taco, which is the worst name of a restaurant, by the way. It's disgusting, but it was on Sunset Boulevard. But I
lived right behind the Pink Taco.
You know,
I lived on La Cienega and Fountain.
Yeah. So now, before then, it was this beautiful Asian restaurant. Okay. And I remember sitting there, and this guy ended up booking Montreal, this kid. Like, I could have been his mother, right? And he's like, he's talking all his comics. You know how you talk, right? Yeah. And he's going, I go, how long have you been doing comedy? He goes, under a year. And I go, you booked Montreal? I said, yeah. He goes, I got a tight 5 minutes. And I like literally wanted to like go, oh, but he booked it because, you know, people could relate to him. It was as soon as social media started, he was hot. Everybody loved his social media, loved all that stuff. You know, he was tweeting every 2 minutes. Like, so he booked it. Okay.
Yeah. And then you start working the clubs, and they expect you to have a half hour and 45 minutes. And it's almost a disservice to these young comics, you know? so fabulous seeing you, and
you.
I so appreciate you coming on. So what's next? What's on the horizon for you?
Oh, yeah. This weekend, I am headlining a fundraiser for my kids' middle school.
Nice.
Woohoo! We're doing it's a science math magnet, which is awesome. And then I'm doing carpool comedy on Saturday, and then Sunday I am headlining She Is Hope LA, which is an organization that helps single moms get sort of their groove back financially through work. It's
bravo.
So we're doing that. So, and then December 11th, I am headlining Flappers. I will be headlining via Zoom. So you guys check that out. And then on the 29th, right after you shop like crazy on Black Friday from your house, on that Sunday, you can watch me live stream from the Pickwick Bowl in Burbank. Wow. And all this stuff is on my social media. You can go to M. Kennedy Comedy, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you'll just see me. Yeah, so that's what's coming up. I have a new movie out called Girl Calling. It's a short. It was in the Palm Springs International Film Festival. And you can always see me on Shameless. I know when I'm airing because I get those checks.
So are they, is that the end of the show? Is that the,
season 11, it's the end. They just started filming. I'm dying, praying that I get a phone call to maybe get a little cameo. But I think new Fiona is in some other prostitute hostel in the sky. I don't know. She's gone. But in COVID times, like I don't think they're gonna have a huge rap party. I mean, maybe if they have the rap party, they'll call me and throw some hors d'oeuvres at me. But I went to the season 9 premiere and I saw Mr. Bill Macy. I love him, and
Is he cool to work with?
Oh, he's love. He patted me on the shoulder when I was in the makeup chair and he said, "Welcome to the family." And then he gave me a standing ovation after I did my risque scene. He said, "Everyone on Shameless has to do one of those, and you did it." So he's a wonderful man. I would love to work with him again. He just made me, and I had to really play it cool. Like I totally know what I'm doing, but yeah, I was petrified. And then Emmy Rossum directed me in an episode. I mean, it was just amazing.
Was she nice to you?
Yeah, she actually upgraded me on set, on location. She put me in an episode that I wasn't in.
Awesome.
So it's lovely.
Very cool.
So, but I love you. Already made it. You already made it.
Well, the fact that we're still doing this, and the fact I think it's really, it's given me a vertebrae, a backbone. I can handle just about anything. My father used to always say, become a you should become a salesperson, because that's the best experience. You can deal with all kinds of people. And I have to tell you, when I run into people that don't have a sense of humor, it's like, next.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't deal.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you keep doing what you're doing. Love you. Thank you so much for spending. I think we went over a half hour, but like I could talk to you forever. But anyway, Mary Kennedy.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
See you soon.
Bye, sweetheart. Be safe.